As I've been slowly going through the minefield that is the early 2000s Disney movies, I find myself asking the same question again and again. Who thought this would work? Chicken Little, Atlantis the Lost Empire, Treasure Planet? Who thought these ideas would work? This era of Disney movies is so easily forgotten about and ignored by Disney, and it makes sense why. Why would Disney want to talk about these movies when they can talk about their long, storied past and bright future? But what made Disney change course away from musicals only to turn back within 2 decades? We need to start all the way back in 1901, when Walt Disney was born. Hold up. I don't need a 2-hour intro to get the gist of this movie. Let's skip forward to where it really matters. 1986. This year had The Great Mouse Detective, which did okay enough when it came to box office numbers that Disney decided to give some of the directors another movie, namely John Musker and Ron Clements. These two got back together and made The Little Mermaid in 1989. They started the Renaissance and brought in a bunch of money for Disney. Because this movie was so successful, these guys were given Aladdin and Hercules. Finally, after making these 3 movies they weren't passionate about, Musker and Clements made their passion project, Treasure Planet. This movie did not do great in the box office and really hurt Musker and Clements when it came to directing Disney movies. Disney released a few more movies in the Renaissance era before it ended in 1999 with Tarzan. This led to the post-Renaissance era, which by some it's called the experimental era, but by others the dark age of Disney. They called it experimental because 2D animation was being phased out to make movies more like Toy Story, which Disney's sister company Pixar made. They also thought they needed to change course after DreamWorks released Shrek and Kung Fu Panda. Because of this, we get movies like Chicken Run instead of Little Mermaid. After Treasure Planet's hesitant green lighting and lackluster box office numbers, Musker and Clements resigned in 2005 after working on projects that just never got greenlit. It took until John Lasseter became appointed Chief Creative Officer in 2006 to invite Musker and Clements to oversee the production of The Princess and the Frog, which they would later be named the directors of the movie. These two knew exactly how to make a perfect and successful Disney movie, and Lasseter needed to quickly get the animation studio back on track. What was interesting about the end of the Renaissance era is that no Disney musicals were released. So what does Disney do? They go and get the 2 guys that got them 3 Disney musicals, Musker and Clements. 2009 comes and they release The Princess and the Frog. Now, box office wise, this movie did worse than even Bolt, but when it came back to bringing hope into the animation studio, The Princess and the Frog did all the work. After 11 years of no musicals release, yes, Tarzan doesn't really count, they finally came back with their tried and true. Why did it take Disney this long to figure out that audiences still wanted this type of movie? Who knows? Why did Disney stop hiring Musker and Clements after a bad movie? Who knows? Why did I call this an almost masterpiece? I guess we'll find out. Part 1. What I love about The Princess and the Frog. I'm not going to go in a linear timeline when it comes to looking at specific elements, so I might come back to things, but just stay with me. I want to start with the idea of want versus need and character development. Want versus need is something that is almost always in Disney movies because it makes the character arc more prevalent and satisfying. Want versus need isn't needed to make a good movie, but for children's movies, it's just simpler. In Musker and Clements' last Renaissance movie, they struggled with this greatly. In Hercules, they had the want being internal, where he sings, what doesn't work is that his need is completely external.
Hercules, if you can prove yourself a true hero on Earth, your godhood will be restored.
Needing to become a god by sacrificing himself for others. The problem is that him finding where he belongs, which is Zeus' son, doesn't really lead to him sacrificing himself for Meg.
You get her out. She goes. You stay.
What Princess and the Frog learned from this is what Musker and Clements knew from the beginning before they forgot along the way. They set Tiana's want as wanting to start her own restaurant just like her father before he passed away. This is an external want. She thinks all she has to do is work as hard as she possibly can and she will get enough to get her restaurant. So she works and finally gets enough money and is happy because it's finally paying off with all that hard work. And someone outbid her and she didn't get the place. Also, this being set in 1926, these two white men saying these subtly racist remarks are accurate for the time through a Disney lens.
Woman of your background would have had her hands full trying to run a big business like that.
Sure, people were more racist, but you can't have these remarks in a children's movie, so they have to compromise, so it's acceptable for all audiences. Anyways, so she thinks that that's her need, but loses the restaurant, and she's discouraged, but ultimately decides that she just needs to work even harder to get her place back. This is prevalent throughout the film when she and Naveen are going through the bayou. When they go to meet Mama Odie, she sings the song Dig a Little Deeper, which Tiana immediately hears and thinks, oh, I just need to dig a little deeper, work a little harder, and get what I deserve. She doesn't listen to lyrics, which I'll try to read right now and not attempt to sing or play because I can't sing. YouTube copyright doesn't like me playing it. It says, you gotta dig a little deeper to find out who you are. And later, when you found out who you are, you find out what you need. Now, let's first look at Prince Naveen. She talks to him asking if he would like more money and pointing out it didn't make him happy before, so why would it make him happy again? And it ends up with him happy she drops the money on him, but finishes with the money piling up on him and burying him, basically overwhelming him. She then tells him to make a brand new start, as Tiana is dancing, just like he showed her in the previous song, and he's happy because he realizes he cares more for her than the money. Now we go to Tiana, where Mama Odie is talking to her about her family and her father, and saying that Tiana is just like her father, but now she's saying it will be tough, but she's just gotta dig a little deeper to find out what she needs. Tiana thinks, I know what you're talking about, because this whole time I've been digging, and if I dig just a little bit deeper, I'll get what I want, which is my restaurant. So she says she needs to dig a little bit deeper and work even harder to get a restaurant, because she believes that's what she needs to do, because that's all she's ever wanted. This is a good twist to a classic Musker and Clements story. Aladdin wants to be rich, but needs to stop pretending what he's not. This directly relates to his want, because if he wants to be rich, he needs to be himself, which Jasmine loves, and he will be rich by marrying her. Tiana doesn't want to be rich. She just wants enough to open a restaurant, which Naveen promises her for one kiss. She thinks she's back on her own because they turned into frogs, but she isn't. Naveen now wants to be with her and starts putting her needs before his because he loves her. She doesn't realize this, but he will be there for her and help her build the restaurant and get the money she needs. I love this setup because it makes our main character look like she is the only one who hasn't noticed their chemistry, because she's so worried about her restaurant. I think this is also where I need to mention the music in this movie. So there are a couple of things you need to know. So first, we need to discuss diegetic versus non-diegetic music in the movies. Basically what this means is, do the characters hear it or not? A great example of this is the binary sunsets in Star Wars. So we hear the Force theme as Luke looks out at it, but there isn't an orchestra off to the left of Luke. It's silent to him. The non-diegetic music just adds to the scene for us in the audience. A good example of diegetic music is any Disney movie.
Looking around here you think, sure, she's got everything.
Sebastian sings Under the Sea. Genie sings Never Had a Friend Like Me. Simba sings I Just Can't Wait to Be King. All three of these examples are diegetic because the characters can hear the music. So after 1998, when the musical had basically died in Disney movies, diegetic music disappeared, besides the few instances like Lilo and Stitch and the Meet the Robinsons. The Princess and the Frog seems to know this, because what do they do with the opening scene?
There's magic in the air tonight.
It starts with non-diegetic music to set the stage for us being in the capital of jazz, New Orleans. But what do we see when Tiana is an adult going through the city? It starts as non-diegetic, but then slowly transitions into diegetic music as we see some of the instruments being played in the movie. And basically throughout the entire movie, the rest is diegetic music. What I love about this is that it's treating us as if we aren't used to the musical style of Disney and eases us back into it because Disney went away from this formula. It also is in line with the environment it's set in, because when you visit New Orleans, the music is just jumping out of the world always. I also need to mention that this soundtrack is the most consistent soundtrack through any Disney movie besides maybe Aladdin. It isn't the best, but every song is done perfectly and transitions it from talking to singing almost flawlessly. The old adage in theater is, when the situation is too emotional to speak, you sing, and when the emotions grow too big for singing, you then start dancing. Ashman, the guy who did work for the music on Little Mermaid before he passed, did this flawlessly in the movie, and helped a little bit with the music in Aladdin in the pre-production before passing in 1991. You can see this in these two movies perfectly, and you get the feeling that Musker and Clements notice because every song in this movie does it so perfectly. Tiana is so excited about her restaurant, she starts singing, and then makes her mom excited, so they start dancing. You can go through other songs, but I don't want to waste your time. My favorite part also has to be the theme for Tiana, Almost There. So she sings it when she's in her apparent place to make her restaurant, and you hear it throughout the film when she's trying to work harder to succeed to get her restaurant. And we get to the end where Dr. Facilier shows her her dream place that he could give it to her if she gave away Prince Naveen's humanity in the form of this necklace. When she sees it, they're playing Almost There, but it's faint and almost kind of eerie, like it's an empty mall sounding.
Naveen?
Then the ukulele picks up in the song and she thinks, oh, this is Naveen, symbolizing that her restaurant is a secondary concern as long as Naveen is there with her. But if she can't have him, she doesn't care about the place. I mean, how perfect is that? So they have an amazing soundtrack and a great character arc for Tiana, and I haven't even mentioned the characters. Dr. Facilier is my favorite antagonist since Hades. He's so menacing, has a great song, and really has a good motivation. The comedic relief of Lewis and Ray are great and have good emotional beats too. I mean, with all these elements, what could possibly go wrong about this movie? Part 2. What I didn't like. Okay, so this movie has the bones for a great story, but what did it fail at? Let's just start with the characters, because I just mentioned them. I stated all the characters I like, but deliberately left out two of the most central characters in the movie, Big Daddy and Charlotte. First off, your daughter is calling you Big Daddy. Anyone else feeling a bit creeped out by that? Whatever. Anyways, the reason these people don't work is for one key reason. So Tiana's mom is shown to be a seamstress and caretaker for Charlotte when she's a child, and Tiana's mom brings Tiana to their house to be friends. They seem to be lifelong friends, and even when Tiana is working as an adult in the restaurant, they're still family friends. This is when Tiana keeps talking about how close she is to making enough money to get a restaurant. Then Big Daddy comes in and orders some of the food and is incredibly nice to Tiana. Charlotte gives Tiana the money to cover the beignets for the party, and Tiana gets enough money for her restaurant for this, and then we see she loses it to these two guys that make this passive-aggressive racist remark. The problem is this is set in 1926, in the Deep South. Tiana's father tells her to work hard and she will get what she wants. Tiana lives by that. This isn't inherently a bad thing because she should work for what she wants. Also, it isn't bad for Big Daddy to treat others better when you have everything. But this man more than likely inherited this plantation from his ancestors who got money off the back of slaves. So Tiana working harder isn't really what happens. Instead, she just gets the money because she's lucky that there's a nice rich white man. This just comes off as inauthentic because why would a rich man in the Deep South in the 1920s be a nice person to a person of color? In a space like YouTube where inauthenticity to generate views is celebrated, it's easy for me to feel this way. I, as someone who does YouTube for fun, am almost required to ask for something like a like, a share, a subscribe, or just spam comments because engagement boosts my statistics for the almighty algorithm. Doing anything less than the Jake Pauls of the world where he constantly bombards with calls to action, plugging his merch, my content will get less engagement because I try to create authenticity, which doesn't help me in the long run. So when we see Tiana in the movie working really hard, it doesn't matter because this inauthentic, nice white man gave it to her. They also depict other problems they faced at the time really well. Tiana and her mother sat in the back of the trolley. The minorities live in lesser valued homes with less land and in a worse location. These real estate agents say these racist things. The musicians are only black men playing for, presumably, only white people. The movie has a great understanding of racism towards minorities faced in the 1920s and still faced today. So why the hell would you make Tiana's hard work irrelevant and say that not all rich white men are shitbags? Some were good and gave money to people of color. It feels, again, like the Pocahontas thing. Not all Europeaners are bad, just this guy. And also, not all Native Americans are perfect. Both sides have bad people. Both sides are savages. When we never asked for this story. We want a real and honest story, not an idealistic, once-in-a-generation possibility. Now, this isn't the end. But for time's sake, I will make this the last section short, I swear. For a children's movie, I get the throwaway slapstick humor, or just humor for children. Moana, my favorite Disney movie, has it. Up has it, nearly every animated movie has it, besides probably Ratatouille. But the amount that The Princess and the Frog has it is way too much. This is where we start to see the cracks of Musker and Clements show through. Aladdin, they see this excessive genie, so they add Louis in this movie, but they also have the Iago equivalent in Ray.
Wait a minute, Jafar. What if you were the chump husband?
Iago, shut up. No one cares, you sack of shit. Ray is more redeemable because he has some emotional moments, but they fill in as many jokes as they can, which makes this movie feel lesser. Also, in Hercules, it has a massive tonal problem. The Princess and the Frog isn't as bad, but it has some problems in the back half. Now this is nitpicky, and a lot of people probably don't care, but I do, so shut up. So Ray steals the magic necklace and brings it to Tiana as she runs, and he says,
Don't make me light my butt!
which basically means, oh, this is gonna be a good, fun fight sequence that's lighthearted. But like 10 seconds later, Dr. Facilier slaps Ray out of the air, steps on him, and kills him. Only for him to come back to life to pronounce he's dead, essentially, and then joins his girlfriend, Angelique, the star in the sky, and everyone cries. The end. Again, unnecessary jokes. And then the punchline of the movie, the most memorable quote that is the highest point of tension, and Tiana tells Dr. Facilier,
It's not slime, it's mucus.
your most memorable and most impactful quote is this throwaway saying that Tiana and Naveen have that means literally nothing to Dr. Facilier or the plot.
Slimy?
No, that is not slime.
What?
You are secreting mucus.
Let's try this in, I don't know, Star Wars.
It's not slime, it's mucus.
Finally, Charlotte has been this needy, spoiled bitch the entire movie who always wanted to get married to a prince. And when it comes down to it, she has a chance to marry the prince, but instead will let Tiana take the prince from her because of true love. Her entire character was built around being spoiled and getting whatever she wants, if she bitches enough. And they redeem her character in the end because they decide, with only this one small scene of hints of her being a good person, to make her kiss Naveen to make Tiana and Naveen become human and get married. And this one scene, sure, it tries to make her look like a good person, but of course she would when she's been friends with Tiana for forever and she has whatever she wants, and she probably wants Tiana to look good because if this worker lady is handing out beignets and looks destroyed and covered in all this dirt, how is that going to look for Charlotte to Naveen? I honestly think with The Princess and the Frog, they were so close to a masterpiece of a movie. If they cut the jokes in half, make Tiana's hard work lead to something rather than a handout which contradicts her entire philosophy for getting her restaurant, and not make Charlotte and Big Daddy morally good characters, this would be up there with some of the best. Because of the tonal problems and the constant forced jokes, I find myself disappointed. I love this movie for what it brought back. Musker and Clements, the musical idea for Disney animation again, but not for the movie itself. What it represents and what it brought forth is great, but it could have been so much more. It could have had better representation and better depictions of minorities in the 1920s. But this is Disney. This is the same company who hadn't had a named black character in a movie until 1997 with Hercules. Representation has never been Disney's things, and even today with wokeness in Mulan's remake, it feels more like trying to capitalize off of social justice marketing and making the masses happy to make money rather than pushing a positive agenda and narrative. At the end of the day, I think Princess and the Frog was a few steps away from being great, and a few instances away from being a historical piece of media beloved for years, like other Musker and Clements movies, such as Aladdin and Little Mermaid, but instead just falls into the cracks just like Hercules. Thank you guys for watching. You know, I've had that little thing about inauthenticity, and I really want to seem authentic. So, I mean, like, I don't want to beg you to give me a like or give me a comment or share or whatever. Just, if you enjoyed it, give me a like. If you didn't enjoy it, just give it a dislike. I just appreciate anything for you guys. And I'll see you guys later.